Poštovani gledalci, pratite emisiju 7+. Naš večerašnji gost je čovjek koji već 40 godina pomaže stanovnicima Gaze. 16 godina radio je u bolnici Al-Shifa. S nama večeras norveški ljekar urgentne medicine i anesteziolog Gilbert. Gospodine Gilbert, dobra večer i hvala što govorite za Hayat televiziju.
Dobro večer, thank you so much and thank you for inviting me.
U Gazi ste 16 godina radili u bolnici Al-Shifa koju Izrael sada označava kao bazu Hamasa. Kako to komentarišete na osnovu vlastitog iskustva? Je li nešto takvo uopšte moguće?
I've been working on and off for the last 16 years in Shifa Hospital. I've been working there between bombings and during bombings. This allegation that Shifa is a military base because there are tunnels underneath is quite stupid. I'm now in a beautiful hospital in Amman, in the big King Hussein Cancer Hospital. And I just came from the basement of tunnels. There are large networks of tunnels under any hospital. Any modern hospital in the world has a system of tunnels for maintenance functions, for communication between different blocks, different parts of the building, and for different kind of storages. So just that there is a network of tunnels under a hospital doesn't make it a military hospital, number one. Number two, I have never seen any command center, nor have any of my colleagues who have been working in Shifa. I've never seen armed medical staff or soldiers inside the hospital. So these allegations are completely unfounded and unsubstantiated by the Israeli army. But if you look at a more important question, they have been actually destroying hospitals by and large in Gaza without even caring to say that it is a military center. So I think what we have seen is a bit of a smokescreen from the Israeli propaganda machinery. They are known to lie. They have been lying about Shifa in order to take the attention away from the fact that they systematically attack healthcare. And when this large bombardment started 2 months ago, there were 34 functioning hospitals in Gaza. And after 6 weeks of bombing and destruction and siege, there remained only 8-9 hospitals that were functioning. They have been bombing and shelling the Al-Quds hospital in Gaza City, the Turkish hospital, which is the cancer hospital for adults. They have been attacking the Rantisi hospital, which is the cancer hospital for children. They've attacked the eye hospital, the psychiatric hospital, the only single one, Red Crescent Hospital in the north, the Al-Quds hospital. So there has been a massive attack on healthcare in Gaza without having to use the excuse or the claim that it's military center. Actually, I'm sitting here with a WHO report from last year, which is called Access to Health. And they document that from 2018 to 2022, there has been 645 Israeli attacks on healthcare in Gaza and in the West Bank. Anything from ambulances to hospitals, to primary healthcare clinics, and to medical staff. And you may know the number. So far, in Gaza, the Israeli occupation army has killed around 280 healthcare workers, 45 doctors, 80 nurses, 23 medical students and nursing students, to mention some of the groups. And they have taken, captured and kidnapped 11 doctors and 1 paramedic in Gaza. So this is a systematic modus operandi by the Israeli army. It is to attack healthcare. So all this fuss about Shifa, it's not proven, there is no evidence, and it's a lie. And they have been attacking almost every hospital in Gaza and also in the West Bank.
Koliko je jaka izraelska propaganda, obzirom da govorimo u kontekstu kako je to sve dio jedne velike propagande, kako ste i sami kazali?
Well, anyone who has followed the Israeli occupation of Gaza and West Bank and the siege of Gaza, anyone who has followed the expansion of the colonies, the illegal settler colonial project, they know that the Israelis are having a very substantial propaganda machinery. It has a name, it's called the Hashbara. And the Hashbara produces every day. They produce attacks, lies. They try to counteract anybody who says anything critical about Israel. And they are working night and day to try to distort reality and to win the narrative, who are the bad guys and who are the good guys. And this machinery is very strong. They have a massive control over a lot of media, and they exert their control through a mechanism of false allegations, lies, rumors, and also threats. We have, as medical scientists, we have been exposed to this when we have published critical papers in scientific journals about the structural racism and the violence that the Israeli apartheid state is committing against Palestinians and in the healthcare system. And these publications are met with very brutal attacks from the medical Zionist lobby. And lately we experienced actually that one of the most influential medical journals in the world, The Lancet, took down a paper that we had written and which was actually accepted for publication 4 days later. It disappeared because the pro-Israeli lobby in the US and in Canada didn't like it, and they threatened the editor. So it's all over, and the propaganda machinery is enormously strong. But we have seen now that the good people all over the world, in Serbia, in Norway, in the United States, in India, in Pakistan, in South Africa, all over, they cut through the fog of lies and they stand tall in their solidarity, and they say, we want Palestine to be free. We want an end to the occupation. We don't want bombing of hospitals. We don't want attacks on healthcare workers. We want decency, and we want the civilian Palestinian people to be protected just as any other people is protected by international law.
Spomenuli ste da se u stotinama broje stradali, ubijeni medicinski radnici, mnogi od njih, vjerujem, vaše kolege, osobe s kojima ste radili. Kako vam je to gotovo svakodnevno gledati? Mnoge od njih ste i više nego dobro poznavali.
Well, thank you for that question. It's a very painful question. I try not to think so much about it because these people were my close friends, my respected colleagues. They were brilliant and very brave and courageous people. One of them that was killed was my former medical student, Maysara Al-Rayes. He was a medical student in the Al-Azhar University Medical School in Gaza, where I teach as a professor. He was the leader of the IFMSA in Gaza, the International Federation of Medical Students. And he participated very actively in projects that we developed together. I always work closely with the medical students to find out how can they be active in society. And we had this beautiful project where I trained medical students to be instructors of life-saving first aid. You know, how to stop a bleeding, how to open the airway, how to do the CPR, how to keep a patient warm before they come to hospital. And then the students, medical students, would go out in the communities and train lay people in evening training courses so as to strengthen the resilience of the people. And Maisara was one of the leaders when we started this program. Always very, very hardworking, very, very kind, very smiling. And I believe now it's 5 weeks ago, he was going to go to bed together with his family in Gaza City, where he lived with his father and his mother and his 2 sisters and his 2 brothers, a big family. The Al-Rayes family is a big family name also in Gaza. His younger sister, I believe it's the younger sister, feverishly in the ruins of the family house. No big bulldozers, no cranes, no nothing to get help from because of the lack of fuel as a result of the siege. And during the morning hours, they continued to dig, to try, hopefully, to find some of their family members alive. The Israelis came back, bombed the same site again, and killed both Maisara's brothers also. So they killed 10 out of 10 family members within 24 hours. They also killed a man who helped them to dig, and they fatally injured a journalist. Maisara was a beautiful person. He was a civilian. He was not a fighter. He was a medical doctor. He had been going to England on a scholarship. He had done his master's with brilliance. He was halfway through his pediatric training, wanted to be a good doctor for the children of Gaza. And they have killed, as I said, altogether 280 medical staff, among them at least 45 doctors like Maisara. It's extremely painful, as it is painful to know that they have killed more than 15,500 Palestinians in 2 months. And among them, as you all know, there are 6,200 children. So these numbers are numbing. I mean, it makes you shiver. It makes you want to shout. Why is nobody stopping this? You know, how can this go on in 2023? This governmental army of Israel is allowed to continue killing around the clock, and not only killing, but destroying the healthcare system and also denying the international community to come with help. We're standing outside Rafah with thousands of trucks, with hundreds and hundreds of tons of relief, of water, of food, of fuel, of medicines, of tents. And Israel says, no, will not be allowed in. Why is this allowed? Why is this accepted? The only country who has actively done something to come to the assistance of their brothers and sisters in Gaza is actually Jordan, where I'm now, where the Jordanian Air Force very bravely flew in, broke the siege of Gaza, flew in with their airplanes and airdropped medical equipment and relief support in the north, close to their Jordanian field hospital there. And they will continue to do that. Why is no more states doing that? Why is it that none of the governments in the world say, we are not sitting idle and watching this massive massacre continue, and seeing children dying from diarrhea, hypothermia, malnutrition? And the UN, WHO, the World Health Organization, they just stated, and I read the statement to you because it's pretty important. They said, quote, overcrowding, loss of homes, lack of water, food and sanitation, cold and lack of protection against rain, wind and winter is now causing high and mounting cases of acute respiratory failure, scabies, diarrhea, skin infections, chickenpox, and jaundice. And they said more people could now die from disease, famine, thirst, and hypothermia than from the bombing, unquote. So now people are dying from very simple preventable causes: thirst, hunger, cold, infections, lack of clean water. And you can imagine if you're a child in Gaza and half of the population are children, you haven't had proper food for 2 months. You don't have clean water to drink. Your parents, if they are alive, don't have clean water to clean you with. You have diarrhea, you vomit, you're cold, and you're scared. What kind of treatment of other people is this? What kind of humanity is it that allows this to happen to 2.2 million good people who have done nothing wrong but being Palestinians born in Gaza and being Palestinians who say no to occupation and colonialism? So we have to do something, everyone. We have to stop this. We have to force our governments to do more. And we have to remember Maysara and all the others who have been killed, all the 15,500 killed and the 41,300 wounded who are suffering today. It's an avalanche of human suffering, and it is 100% man-made by the state of Israel. It's not a natural disaster. It's not an earthquake. It's not a forest fire. It's man-made, planned, deliberately done with a very high level of precision. And now they deny all the time through this campaign or this attack relief to come to the people who need relief so badly.
Rat u Gazi je neuporedivo razorniji i neuporedivo većim brojem civilnih žrtava nego, na primjer, ruska invazija na Ukrajinu. Uprkos tome, s Palestincima se solidarišu samo pojedine zemlje. I vi ste to upravo kazali. Šta vi mislite zbog čega je to tako? Koga i čega se ostali plaše?
Well, that is a very important question, and I thank you for that question. And just pertinent to Ukraine, I was doing a little mathematics the other day just to compare. And with the current number of killed, 15,500, it's around 0.7% of the population in Gaza has been killed. It's a very high number. If you compare the same fraction of the population killed in the United States, you would have had 2.3 million killed Americans in 2 months, 2.3 million. And in Ukraine, you would have had 308,000 killed during the 2 years of the war in Ukraine. In fact, the number of killed civilians in Ukraine, it's not 308,000, it is 9,600. So the machinery, the killing machinery, the industrial killing that goes on in Gaza now has never been seen before. It's so systematic, it's so brutal, and it's killing both by bombing and by all these public health threats, by denying people food, water, shelter, warmth, and healthcare. So it is a very cynical, very brutal, and sadistic way of eliminating a whole people. Why is it that the global South is supporting Palestine and the global North is supporting Israel? Well, I think you have to look into history, and you have to look to the colonial roots of Europe and the United States, Canada, and Australia. Particularly USA, Canada, and Australia are all settler colonial societies that were taking land from the natives, from the indigenous people, killing them, occupying the land, and pushing the indigenous people into reservations like we see in the United States today. Same with the Aborigines in Australia, and Native Americans in Canada, of course. And for Europe, centuries of horrible colonial politics with precisely the same tools. Grab the land, steal the land, occupy by force, kill, and enslave the local people who are not killed. And any sign of resistance to the colonization, they will be killed. So I think, I don't know, but Europe probably has some convulsions of the colonial style, and they support Israel because at the end of the day, it's an old colonial strategy that Israel is perpetrating. with the elimination of the Palestinian people. Another explanation may, of course, be the political bindings to the United States. And for the United States, you know, it's all geopolitics. It has nothing to do with moral or ethical standards or adhering to the international conventions or the Human Rights Declaration or the Declaration of the Rights of Children. All of these declarations that we thought were operative, they're just paper. They're just nothing to the United States. As long as they can support this killing machine and maintain their control in the Middle East. You know, somebody once called Israel the United States air carrier or hangar ship in the Middle East. And of course, it is an important military base for the United States geopolitical control. And that's all coming down to gas and oil and money. And you know, probably that there are enormously rich gas and oil fields off the coast of Gaza on the Palestinian continental shelf, which belongs to Palestine. Palestine is a coastal state. They have the right to 200 miles economic zone, like we have in Norway, for example. And of course, these natural resources and water are extremely attractive to Israel and to any colonial power who wants to enrich themselves and expand their power. And on top of that, of course, you have the political project of political Zionism, which is Eretz Israel, the land of Israel, which is from the river to the sea. That's the Israeli flag, the two blue lines in the Israeli flag. It's the Jordan River and the Mediterranean Sea, and then the state of Israel in between. So their project is, of course, to eliminate the Palestinians in Gaza and in the West Bank in order to establish this Zionist dream state, which is only for one people and one religion, and a 100% apartheid regime. We thought we had done with apartheid when we were actually supporting and seeing the brave people of South Africa get rid of apartheid and Zimbabwe and the other countries in Africa and many other countries in the global South. So there is an ongoing struggle between the global North and their colonial aspirations and their military aspirations and the global South. And Gaza is part of this, but it's an extremely painful, bloody, and unjust case. So I think we all have to stand up and decide which side we're on, because this is history. We're in the history books now. It's very serious. It's extremely serious because it will define the road forward. Does might give you right, or is there some rights that are inscribed in the human book of laws, in the human book of humanity, in the human book of how we shall treat each other?
Spomenuli ste sjevernoameričke zemlje, spomenuli ste mnoge zemlje u Evropi, kako njihove vlade podržavaju većinu onoga što radi Izrael. U kontekstu toga zanima me, može li Izrael imati ikakvih posljedica ukoliko dođe u skorije vrijeme do okončanja sukoba? Koliko je to realno?
I'd like to modify. I didn't say that most northern countries and states support Israel. If I said that, I was imprecise. The governments and the powers may support Israel, but the people do not support Israel. We have seen the millions and millions and millions in the streets standing up and saying, "Free Palestine, don't bomb hospitals, protect the civilians, end the occupation, lift the siege." So people, good people all over the world, they cut through the fog of war and the fog of propaganda. And the divide between the powers and the people is getting deeper and deeper. And that worries the powers, because they know that when the people are getting too much resentment against the powers, they are in trouble. So recently we have seen how Macron and some few EU leaders are trying to say, "Oh, be careful with the children. Oh, be careful with the hospitals." It's too late. It's too late. They should have imposed sanctions just as quickly as they imposed sanctions when Russia invaded eastern Ukraine, rightly so. They should have supported the Palestinian people just as they have been supporting the Ukrainian people. Rightly so. There are so many tools in the toolbox to stop Israel. Nothing is being done. And this is the main problem, as you're asking, the Israeli impunity, because the Israeli impunity has been going on since 1948. They have always been let off the hook. They've never been held accountable for their massacres, their violations of international law, their insane killing of children and women, their insane attacks on healthcare, their starvation for 16 years in Gaza of 2 million people, of whom the majority are children. The bombing of hospitals, the bombing of schools, universities, public buildings, they've never been held accountable. They've never paid war compensation. They've never been taken to the International Criminal Court. So they are like a pit bull that was never given any kind of upbringing, just fed blood and meat all the time. How can you control that now? So I'm in doubt, and I fear that also this time the ICC will fade away and chicken out, not being courageous or principled enough to take the Israeli responsible generals and their ministers, the Minister of Defense, the Prime Minister, and the other responsible minister, to court, like they did with the perpetrators of Srebrenica. I mean, Srebrenica was horrible, but it was much, I mean, it was incomparable to what's going on in Gaza. So why is it that Israel is not held accountable? Why is it that they're getting away with all these crimes? I think one of the explanations from my experience is, guilt feeling in Europe for not having stopped Holocaust, having turned the back to the Nazis when they started to name the Jews as the evil of everything on earth, and not standing up to defend the Jews. And I think that was shameful. Holocaust should never have been taken place. It should have been stopped. Of course, it was a horrible crime. And those who were taken to court in Nuremberg and those who were sentenced even to death, that was right. We have a huge debt to the Jewish people, not to the Zionist movement, but to the Jewish people for having looked away. But why should we look away again? Why should we repeat the same horrendous mistake or ignorance or sin of being passive? In 38 to 45, it was enough to have a yellow star taped or fixed to your jacket, and you could be killed by anyone. Today, it's enough that somebody calls you Hamas, or they call a building Hamas, or they call a hospital Hamas, and it can be willfully bombed and destroyed or killed. It's the same. It's naming others. And the deep root of this is racism, colonial racism. We are more worthy than the others. And it is a deeply rooted apartheid system, making difference between people in value. We thought we had learned from Holocaust. We thought we had some very important experiences summed up, but it does not apply to the Palestinian people because the Holocaust industry has abused the memory of Holocaust to make anybody who criticized the political project of Zionism, the occupation of Palestine and the expansion of Israel, anybody who dares criticize that will immediately be labeled again. So this labeling takes place all the time. Either you're Hamas, or you're a terrorist, or you're anti-Semite. It's a whole network of lieful, untrue accusations against people you don't agree with. And then that accusation is followed up with a license to kill. I don't support Hamas, but to support the Palestinian people doesn't make me Hamas. I don't support any hospitals being used for military base, but they're not. And defending the hospitals in Gaza doesn't make me a militant or a terrorist. I support the Palestinian people, like most people all over the world do. And we support their right to resist occupation, just like we support the right of the Ukrainian people to resist occupation with arms. That's anchored in the international law. Of course, within the ramification of the Geneva Convention and international conventions. I don't support any political fraction in Gaza. I don't support PA or Jihad or PFLP. I support the Palestinian people. They have the right to resist. They have the right to demand national independence. They have the right to see an end to the occupation, just like the Ukrainian people. And just because you don't like Hamas, like that political movement, who, by the way, won the election in 2006 with a landslide victory in Palestine, doesn't give you the authority to bomb them. I mean, I didn't like very much that the majority in the United States elected Donald Trump. I think he's horrible. But that wouldn't give the Canadian a right to bomb the United States just because the Americans chose a stupid president. People have the right to their own choices and also to do stupid choices. So this whole logic about labeling the Palestinians by and large as terrorists and this horrible, horrible naming of all the Palestinians in Gaza as animals, as the Minister of Defense or the Minister of Attack, Mr. Gallant, said the first week of the attack. Horrible. I condemn any attack on civilians. I condemn any terror attack, be it from Ukrainian forces or Russian forces or Palestinian forces or Israeli forces. That's not the issue here. Everyone should be prosecuted and taken to court and be held responsible for the crimes they do.
Hvala vam, gospodine Gilbert, mnogo na izdvojenom vremenu. Ponestaje nam vremena za večerašnju emisiju. Hvala što ste bili gost Hayat televizije.
Thank you so much.
Hvala i vama, poštovani gledalci, što ste i večeras bili uz emisiju 7+. Preporuka da ostanete i dalje uz program Hayat televizije. Ugodan ostatak večeri i doviđenja.